that I could make a unattractive pattern, make you say, wow, 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 what? She did that with this pattern? What the heck? But I'm going to be sharing with you guys a pattern review as well as the sew along for what I did to jazz up this pattern to look like this. So if that's some content you would like to see, please continue to watch.
Why don't you go see your boyfriend?
Yeah, he's got a nice room. You won't have it long. He'll have to call for 7 a.m.
Bad girls make them say wow. Bad girls make them say wow. Bad girls make them say wow.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you guys what? New look 6781, a pattern review as well as a sew along. But if you are new to the channel, welcome. Hello, Ciao, Guten, Aloha, Hola, Konnichiwa, Gwaan, Sabonani, Shalom, Bonjour, Terve. If you are returning, you guys know what to do. Quick snack, something to drink. Grab your notebooks to take down some notes, because there are some notes that you may want to take down, all right? So in order to keep this video short, sweet, and to the point, not to stall for the cause, okay? Let's go ahead and get right on into this video. All right, so I am doing a pattern review and a sew along for you guys. We're gonna start off with the pattern review first for New Look 6781. So I did the top and of course with a hack because I have sleeves. This baby right here don't. So if you guys remember when I talked about the Hobby Lobby 99-cent sale, now this one I did not grab during the sale. However, it came out in spring 2024. And when I seen this pattern, it's also a Vogue pattern. I'll put the Vogue pattern up here so you're able to see it as well. But listen, I will be sewing a lot of the Hobby Lobby 99-cent patterns that I picked up, or just in general, new look patterns for the entire month of June. I do have some other, I think 2 other sew alongs that I am going to be doing. That is not new look, but stay tuned for that and stay locked to the channel the entire month of June, all right? But this is New Look 6781. Let's go ahead and talk about the pattern description. So I'm gonna give my own, because if you guys don't know, they don't give a lot of information for new look patterns on simplicity.com website. But what you have here, I'm just gonna do the basic and then I'll talk about what I did in modifications, okay? So this is a button front top, okay? So you're going to finish off your neckline and your armhole if you are doing the sleeveless version with bias tape. You're going to include 4 buttons down the front, but I did make a modification to mine, which I'll talk about here shortly. You have two fronts, of course, 2 sides. You have a front, and then you also have a side front. This flares away from your body, so it's not like a fitted top. This is more of a loose fitting top, but you can make it fitted. I want to give a shout out to my girl Shelly Shell, because she did let me know that this top is similar to Janelle Naylor for Target. Okay, so if you go in Target, there is a dupe of a Janelle Naylor top that looks similar to this. I already cut this entire ensemble when she sent me the photo, so thank you, my girl Shelly from Shelly Shell here on YouTube. I'm gonna drop her link in the description box below, and she will be a part of the Hot Girl Summer, so you wouldn't want to miss what my girl Shelly have in store for you on her day. All right, so let's get back into a New Look 6781. So that's the top. In terms of the pants, it's just your easy to sew, basic elastic style pants, 3 pattern pieces, baby. So I am doing a sew along for both the top and the pants, so just stay tuned for that as well. It is a Vogue pattern, which I did mention, which I'm going to put that in the description box below as well. Let's go ahead and talk about the sewing skill level. So in terms of the sewing skill level, this pattern is rated as easy. Do I feel this pattern is easy? The pants, yes. The top, no. Okay, anytime you have anything that deals with zippers or buttons, I'm not going to say that it's an easy to sew, because if you are a true beginner, you may not be feeling comfortable doing zippers or buttons just yet. Okay, but if you watch my video, you'll be feeling a lot more comfortable and confident to do this pattern. Trust you me. The only difference is I don't show how to do buttonholes, only because everyone's machine is different, but the sewing of it is all in this video, okay? Now, in terms of the pants, I love the pants as well, but I did do a modification or a style change, okay, to suit what I like for my pants, all right? Let's go ahead and talk about the fabric used. So in terms of the fabric used, I'm gonna put the name of the fabric in the description box below and try to put it up here as well. But this is just some cotton fabric from my local Joann's. This was already in my stash. Y'all know I've been trying to use as much stash fabric as possible. So I'm using every single solid that I could think of to use and pair with whatever I had. Now, I probably used a total of 4 yards of fabric for the top and the pants, maybe 4 1/4. But it wasn't much. I do have a little bit more of this fabric, well, this color fabric and the fabric left in order to make a dress, which is part of Battle of the Shirt Dress, which you guys will be seeing coming up here shortly, okay? Yes, Battle of the Shirt Dress is still going on, so I did not forget. But here are the pants right here. I love these pants. They fit amazing. I didn't have to do any type of sizing up, sizing down, or any of that jazz or whatever. It sews good outside of the package. And I will say this is less than a 2-hour sew. Believe me when I say that. 3 pattern pieces for the pants. In terms of the top, it's 5 pattern pieces, but you're really only going to be cutting 4 pattern pieces out of fabric. The 5th pattern piece is a buttonhole guide. All right, so speaking of pattern pieces, let's talk about the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct the top first. So in terms of the top, you need 5 pattern pieces, but you're only gonna cut 4 out of fabric. Your front, your side front, your back, and your side back. That's it. 4 pattern pieces, okay? And then pattern piece number 5 is your guide for your buttonholes. Now, in terms of the pants, you're gonna be cutting 3 pattern pieces. And those pattern pieces are your front, your back, and your pocket. That's it. You're also going to need some elastic. So let's go ahead and talk about the notions that you're going to be needing for this pattern. So in terms of the notions for this pattern, for the top, without the modifications that I made, you're going to be needing 4 1-inch buttons, okay? For the pants, you're only gonna need some elastic. So in terms of that, you're going to be needing 1-inch elastic. I used a 1/2 inch, which I'll talk about in modifications. If you are doing the top out of the package, you're also going to need single fold bias tape, which of course you guys know I made my own single fold bias tape with the scrap fabric from the pattern, all right? Let's talk about pattern sizing. So in terms of pattern sizing, there's only one envelope, and that is 10 to 22. Now for the top, I cut a size 16 for the top. And then for the pant, I cut the biggest size, size 22, because your girl's hips, okay? We ain't trying to have nothing tight on the hips. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to leave a little bit of room, because when I sit down, I don't need seams to pop, okay? That is not a good look, all right? So let's go ahead and talk about modifications. All right, so let's talk about the pants modifications first. So in terms of the modifications for the pants, the only thing I did was add a 2nd row of elastic. I do not like 1 row of elastic. I like my elastic to be secured. It's not twisting up. So what I did is create 2 rows of stitching for my pants, like you see here. And instead of me using 1-inch elastic, I used a 1/2 inch elastic for my for the elastic to go through. So in terms of how did I create my stitching, so I did 1.5 inches instead of 1.25 inches like it says, right? I folded under 1/4 inch, which made it 1.25 inches. And then the second stitching, I went in and did 3/4 inch all the way around. Then that allowed me to go through with a 1/2 inch elastic to sift all the way through for my casing, all right? So that's the only thing that I did in terms of the pants when I, in order to sew the pants up and make them look good the way that I like them, all right? So let's talk about the top. So in terms of the top, y'all, like, if you guys remember when I talked about, the drop, it was either the drop or the Hobby Lobby video, which I'll put both of them in the description box below. Put them up right here so you're able to see it. And I'll link to the Hobby Lobby one on the end screen. But in terms of the top, I talked about how this top is unattractive. It was more like for your grandmamas, right? But when I say, I definitely was like, I'm going to take this grandmama top and definitely hack it for my 20s, 30s, and 40-year-olds and show how you could take something that's so unattractive and not appealing to the eye, look past that pattern and make it do what it do. Now, I like this top the way that I styled it, but not what is on this pattern, period, point blank. So in terms of modification, first thing I did was I added another buttonhole. So my top has 5 buttonholes instead of 4, okay? And I use 7/8 of an inch buttons for my top instead of 1 inch. So that was the first thing that I did. In terms of the sleeve, now I started off drafting a bishop sleeve, which I'm going to show you a little bit of that drafting process. And then my daughter was cleaning out my pattern stash because I will be doing a massive destash pattern haul. Destashing my patterns to completely get rid of a lot of patterns, and you guys will see that coming up. And when I say coming up, give me a little bit of time because it's massive amount of patterns that I'm going to be gifting, not necessarily giving, but it'll be a pattern sale like I have done before for like $1, $2, something like that. It's not gonna be nothing ridiculously crazy, all right? But what I did, so when she was doing that, she picked up the pattern, and the pattern is Simplicity 9467. So with 9467, I completely did a sew along for this pattern. I'm gonna show you guys the top that I created. So about, I wanna say 2 years ago, I used this pattern and created a top. This is the top that I created using Simplicity 9467. It has the same sleeves on it. I'm gonna put a couple of pictures up so you guys could see this top in all of its glory. And I use like these, I hand sewed all of these buttons on. I was not about that life, so I completely did it on my machine this time around. Now, if you think about it, this would pair together very well, this top and the pants. It's just I didn't want to take it off and do more photos for you guys, but I will be wearing this top and the pants to work this week, okay? So that's what I did in terms of modification. Let's talk about, did it look like the photos or the drawing on the pattern envelope? The pants, yes, but the top, no. The top definitely don't look like the photos or the drawing here because I hacked it and did my own thing. But for the most part, yes, it does look like the photos and the drawings on the pattern envelope, just with a couple of minor style changes. All right, let's talk about, are the instructions easy to follow? Yes, they are easy to follow, and for both the top and the pants, as long as you're not making the modifications that I made. Okay, let's talk about likes and dislikes. So I love the pants. I will be making the pants several times in several different colors, 3 pattern pieces, less than 2. Listen to this. The pants took 1 hour and 2 minutes to sew up. And yes, I am telling you guys exactly how long it took me to sew those pants up with 3 pattern pieces because my daughter wrote down the start time and the end time. Okay, I'm sorry, 1 hour and 12 minutes. She just corrected me, by the way. 1 hour and 12 minutes. I started at like 6:48 one night and ended at 8 o'clock the same night. All right, so yes, it only like when I say it's less than 2 hours, it is literally less than 2 hours to sew, and you will see that here coming up on the sew along. All right, let's talk about first time experiences. There's no dislikes for anything, either piece, but in terms of first time experiences, there are no first time experience whatsoever. I have hacked patterns several times. I just don't share a lot of the hacks with you guys on the channel because you guys be wanting me to sew things right outside of the package without the necessarily hacks. But yeah, I love to hack patterns, you guys. I'm just gonna put it like that, okay? And you may see some of that. You will see some of that coming up here shortly. All right, let's talk about what I sew this pattern again. In terms of the pants, yes. In terms of the top, no. I feel like the top is great. I only need one in my wardrobe. I just wanted to do the top to show you how you could turn a unattractive pattern to something hot and sexy. Okay, that's it. All right. So would I recommend this pattern to other? Absolutely. That's why I did a sew along for you guys. Now, in terms of the top, let's talk about the top real quick. So in terms of the top, I would definitely say add a sleeve, okay? I'm not too much of a sleeveless girl to begin with because I tend to get cold at work and we're not wearing a coat or a jacket in the summertime. It's just, we're not about that life. So I prefer to add a little bit of sleeves, you know, to a sleeveless pattern so I can roll it up, roll it down, cuff it, whatever I want to do, right? So what I can see for this top, you could do a short sleeve. You could do a balloon sleeve, a bishop sleeve, something with a sleeve stay. If you remember when I did New Look 6694, the yellow Easter dress, you could literally take that sleeve and put it on here. You could do a cold shoulder sleeve where you have a cold shoulder and the sleeve is from here down. You could do that. You could do the same pattern that I did. You could do like a straight sleeve with a cuff on it. You can do so many different style changes with this pattern. Many different sleeves. There is a sleeve pattern that have nothing but sleeves that you can do. I'm going to put the pattern up so you're able to see that pattern. So when the next Simplicity pattern style is on, you could definitely pick up that pattern and put any of those sleeves on any one of your patterns, okay? Making small modifications, all right? So let's talk about, I said I would recommend this pattern to others. So now my pattern rating. So in terms of this pattern, I'm going to stamp this pattern for the pants 5 out of 5. For the top, now with my modifications, I'm going to stamp it as a 5 out of 5. But just basically with that top, I'm going to definitely stamp it as a 4 out of 5. Only because you're going to have to jazz it up in order for it to look cute. But the whole ensemble, 5 out of 5. All right. So that's it for my pattern review. I hope you enjoyed what I created for another look for the hot girl summer for New Look patterns going on the entire month of June. I have some more that's going to be coming towards the end of the month. So you don't want to miss what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Also, make sure you are following the other 22 ladies that will be hitting the stage on Instagram, and some of them are on YouTube. All the YouTube handles will be in the description box below as well, so you can see what they create for the hot girl summer for New Look patterns. All right, well, that's it for this pattern review. That's it. Let's go ahead and get over to the sew along. Hey everyone, it is now day number 3 and we are on May 26th of a 7-day process of what I can get it done in 7 days. So yesterday I worked on New Look 6769 and I actually completely finished the pants. I will show you that here soon, but today I'm going to be working on New Look 6781. I'm going to be working on the pants today. I think I probably have to get about another yard and a half in order to do the sleeves that I want to do for the top, which are bishop sleeves. So I think I want to do that. Now what I'm going to do for this one is I do have a basic bodice block that I have done many moons ago, but I think what I'm going to do is take a sleeve from a different New Look pattern. If you guys remember when I did the dress New Look 6180, I did a slit sleeve. So I think what I'm going to do is take that pattern, right, because I already traced it, take that pattern and then hack it and make my own bishop sleeve. Now, I'm not going to show you guys how to construct, you know, a bishop sleeve. I might not. I don't know. We'll see how it goes when I get ready to sew the top. But today I'm going to be sewing the pants, and then probably tomorrow I'll start working on the top. All right. So it's only 3 pattern pieces. So let's go ahead and get started. with New Look 6781. All right, so let's go ahead and look over the pattern instructions you're going to need in order to do the pants. Like I mentioned, it's only 3 pattern pieces. Pattern piece number 6, 7, and 8, which are your front, your back, and your pockets for this one. Now, I am using like some sage green fabric. The fabric is a poplin that I picked up a very long time ago from DTLA, which is downtown LA, when I was at the Mimi G conference many moons ago. I think about 7 years ago. It's been in my stash, so I'm finally using it. All right. And I think the fabric is like 54 inches, but I'm just going to follow the 45-inch guide and cut it out. It's only 3 pattern pieces, so it's not much that you need to follow there. In terms of the lining is for the pocket. You could use the same fabric if you choose to, or you could use a nice lining fabric. All right. Now, according to the instructions, it shows us that we're going to do the front, the inseams, I should say, the front and back inseam. We're going to pin on the pockets, do the side seam and pockets, close out the crotch curve, and then insert our elastic. Okay. Now, I'm doing 2 rows of elastic for mine because that's just the vibe that I like, instead of 1 roll, but do whatever method you want. Now, one thing I will mention is that for the casing, I measured it, it's 1.5 inches. So you have 2 options. You could enlarge it to make it 2 inches to where you can slide in 1 inch elastic through the casing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch halfway through, which is 3/4 of an inch, and insert a 1/2 inch casing in both of them. All right, so I'm going to be making that a 2-roll casing of elastic instead of 1 to have it secured on my waist. All right, so that's what I'm going to be doing there. So let's go ahead and move these instructions off to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces now. All right, so let's go ahead and run through the pattern pieces you will need. So the first pattern piece is pattern piece number 6, which is the front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 7, the back. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 8, your pockets. You need to cut 4 of fabric, or 2 of main fabric and 2 of lining, or you could cut 4 of lining, but you need 4 pockets total. All right, 2 for the front, 2 for the back. All right, so those are all the pattern pieces that you need in order to construct these pants, which once again, we are using New Look 6781. Now, a couple of things I want to make sure before you cut your pattern pieces out. You want to make sure you have measured your crotch curve. Now, like I mentioned, this is the 1.5. So measure your crotch curve, then take off that 1.5 and see what you get from the front and the back. Now, I have done this. I have showed you guys how to size the patterns and everything for your waist and your hips. So you should already know how to do all of this. I'll do another one for the top portion of your body in an upcoming video. All right. Make sure you transfer all your notches and your dots as well. And the other thing that you need to do is if you need to size up your hips, which you guys know your girl always have to size up hips. I already did that. And I graded all the way down to this double line. Make sure you measure your crotch depth as well, because I have showed you how to do that as well. Once you make all of the adjustments, cut your fabric out, and then we are ready to go ahead and get sewing. So let's go ahead and get pattern piece number 6 and pattern piece number 7, and let's go ahead and start sewing our inseam. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the inseam sewn, the next thing we're going to do are the pockets, okay? So grab pattern piece number 8, and what you're going to do is with right sides together. So go ahead and open up your pants, and you will have your 2 dots right here for the back. So this is the back of my pattern, my pants, and then this side is the front. So what you want to do is you want to match with the right sides together. So I marked the side 8 on the back of mine, so I know which one is the front and the back. So what you want to do is with right sides together, you want to pin at the notch. So you have a notch on the side. Yes, it's not supposed to go all the way up to the top because you have a casing. So you do not want it to go all the way up to the top, but you want to pin at that notch. So just pin at the notch. And then you're just going to pin along the side of the pocket and your pant leg. All right, so just go ahead and pin. After you pin the front, go ahead and pin the back pocket in place as well. So I'm going to match up the notch, pin right there. And then I'm going to grab some more pins and pin along the side. So go ahead and finish pinning now. All right, so now that I have my pockets pinned in place on the front and on the back, what I'm going to do now, in the instructions, it says 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, but I don't like doing 1/4 of an inch because it will literally show my little notch for my pockets. So I like to do 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to back stitch at the beginning, sew all the way down, and back stitch at the end. Once I do that, I'm going to finish off my seam allowance right where the pocket is on both sides, the front and on the back. Now, after you finish off your seam allowance for the front and the back, you're going to press the seam allowance towards the pockets. However, only on the front pattern piece, which is pattern piece number 6, the front of your pants, which is this one on mine, I'm going to make sure that the seam allowance is pressed towards the pockets, and then I'm going to understitch. Understitch is done at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm only going to understitch on the front pant pocket, okay? Do not do this to the back pant pocket, all right? Just the front pant pocket, you need to understitch, all right? So go ahead and do all of that now. All right, so now that I have the pocket on the front and the back, I have the seam allowance pressed towards the pocket. The front is the pocket that I went ahead and understitched. Now what we're going to do is attach the front to the back at the side seam and pocket. So this is the right side facing up on the table. I'm going to go ahead and take the other pant leg, right? And I'm going to match that up, right sides together. Now, what you can do if you want, you could do it the opposite way. And the opposite way would be, according to the pattern, I'm going to show you what it wants you to do according to the pattern envelope. They want you to attach front to back like this, right? And then you're going to have another pattern pant leg and you're going to slide it inside. I don't like to do that particularly. I just like to attach the front to the back. That's just my preference, all right? So I'm just going to do it the way that I love doing it. And that's front to back, like this. And I'm going to do the crotch seam first, and then I'll do the side seam. So front to back, and I'm just going to pin the crotch seam first. So let me put that together for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pin at the crotch seam. Make sure that your seam allowance is pressed towards the back. That's where you have the double notches right here. And we're just going to pin right there. And then I'm just going to pin along the crotch seam, making sure I pin at my notches in the back. And then you could just pin along the curve all the way around. All right, so just pin all the way around your crotch curve now. All right, so I pinned the back. I'm going to go ahead and pin the front. So just like we did the back, you're going to pin at this single notch right here. All right, so now that I have the crotch curve pin using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way along your crotch curve, and then back stitch at the end. Once you do that, you want to go from this notch to notch. I would go ahead and sew, after you do the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, go ahead and sew at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance just to create another stitching. So if you break a stitch, you're not breaking stitches in between your crotch. You get what I'm saying? And then finish off your crotch curve with your serger, however you're finishing it off, all right? So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the crotch seam done, I went ahead and created a second stitch and I finished it off. Go ahead and open it up, and I'm going to place my back pattern pieces on the table. So this is my front, this is my front, this is my back. I'm going to open up the back just like so. Okay, so this is the back of my pants, and I'm going to take the front and put them on top, right sides together. All right, so what I have is this is my front looking up, okay, and I'm going to put those right sides together. All right, now what we're going to do, I'm not going to show you how to do this on camera. I'm just going to kind of walk you through it a little bit, but not necessarily. You're going to sew up your side seam and pockets. We have done this so many times on the channel. So all you need to do is definitely make sure you have your pant legs right sides together. You're going to pin at that double notch that you have, pin there. And then you're going to pin the length of your pants, all right? You're also going to go ahead and pin your pocket in place, all right? So you have a dot right here, so pin at that dot. Pin at the other dot as well. Let me bring it down so you're able to see that. And then definitely pin around your pockets, okay? So I'm just kind of showing you how to do this, but you should know how to do pockets now. We have been going through pockets since like my first tutorial on this. All right, so now that I have pinned around the pockets, continue pinning along your pants leg, all right? So, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, start at your hem. You're gonna back stitch at your hem, so all the way up until you get to this dot. Once you get to this dot, back stitch at the dot, and then come to the second dot, back stitch at this dot, and then sew all the way up. You're still using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you finish from this dot all the way up, you're going to sew around your pockets using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? Once you do that, finish off your pockets and your side seam, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and start working on our casing, all right? So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my front to back at the side seam and pockets, I went ahead and created a 1.5 inch stitching line, basting stitch, I should say, at the very top. I'm hoping you can see that. I'll zoom it in so you are able to see that. Also, one thing I want to make sure that you know that when it comes time for you putting your casing, you want to make sure that your seam allowance to the front and the back is on the correct side. However, whichever way that you serge your seam allowance, when you attach front to back at the crotch curve, that's the way that you need your top to go in the same direction. Otherwise, when it's time to insert your casing, you're going to have a hard time getting it through, okay? So just make sure you pay attention to that as well. If you did not do like I did and serge them as one and you have two, make sure you have your seam allowance pressed open, okay? All right, so the next thing, I went ahead and serged the top all the way around. Now, if you do not feel like serging the top, what you can do is press in 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then you're going to press to that casing, okay? So that's what it's going to look like. Now, what I'm going to do is, because this is 1.5, I'm going to create a second roll of casing. After I do the first one, I'm going to create a second one at 3/4 of an inch seam allowance, okay? So those are the two that I'm going to be creating for myself. Now, what I'm going to do, the only thing that's left for you to do, there's two things you need to do. You're going to fold down your casing like this. Now, this is supposed to be 1/4 of an inch. I'm not doing the 1/4 of an inch, which is the reason why I serged mine. But you're supposed to press under 1/4 of an inch and then press down, or should say press up, be pressed up. And this is what your casing is going to look like. You're going to do that all the way around and then a stitch. Now I'm going to put a pin right here because you need to leave an opening for your elastic to go in. So I'm gonna basically clean up mine, but I'm just gonna show you just for the sake of the sew along. All right, so I'm going to press all the way around my casing, but I'm going to leave this much of elastic. Make sure you're leaving the elastic in the back and not in the front. Now, this is the front of my pants, so I'm going to make sure that I move this to the back to create that casing, okay? So you're going to do that all the way around. Make sure that your pockets are underneath. It's going to look like this, okay? Underneath, all right? So go ahead and press your casing up all the way around and then feed your elastic all the way through. Once you do that, the only thing that's left for you to do is go ahead and do your hem. Your hem is at 1 1/4. So what I'm going to do is serge all the way around my hem and then press up 1 1/4 and then stitch all the way around. Okay? Once you do that, you are all done with your pants. All right, so that's it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick, short video on how to sew the pants for New Look 6781. If you make this pattern, New Look 6781, please do not forget to tag me on Instagram or here on YouTube at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. So I hope to see your make of these pants. Until next time, keep sewing. All right, so what I'm doing, I'm working on a bishop sleeve. And for the most part, you guys seen me do the drafting of the sleeve. The pattern that I'm working on is New Look 6781. So I am using my basic bodice sloper. I just kind of traced it out just to kind of give you what I did. I just traced it all the way out. I need it to be 22 inches from my shoulder all the way down to my wrist is 22 inches. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to put a cuff on it. So I cut off 2 inches at the bottom. So from the top down to the bottom is 20 inches because my cuff is going to be 2 inches. And then another thing that I did, I went down from the bicep line where you see bicep right here. Okay, I went down 1.5 inches and made another line right here. And this line is basically just to square off where I want my sleeves to be. And then from there, now this line right here was kind of like for a short sleeve, but I'm doing a long sleeve. So that's why it's like that. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing the slash and spread method in order to make a bishop sleeve. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm going to space. So let me back up. I folded the sleeve in half to get the center. And then I made a line basically 4 inches apart, 3. So that's 4, 8, and 12. And these are cut 4 inches long, wide. I'm sorry, 4 inches wide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread them out to be about 2 inches to make that long bishop sleeve at the bottom with a cuff. I feel like that would probably be the best bet for that top. So what I'm going to do, I already moved this out 2 inches. So right in the center, what I'm doing is I'm just moving it out 2 inches. And then I'm going to put a piece of tape there. And then I'm just going to join it at the bottom. Now at the bottom, it'll be about 3. I think it's like right at 3.5 inches. Yes. When you move each section out 2 inches, the bottom should be 3.5. So I'm going to do that on the last one. Now make sure that when you tape it down, your pattern piece is pretty darn flat. You want it to be flat. You don't want it to be bunched up or anything. So just make sure that you have a flat pattern piece. All right. So I'm going to do the other one off camera and then I'm going to join it at the bottom. All right. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have all my pieces done, grab your hip curve ruler. So I'm gonna grab my SA curve ruler. You can no longer get this, but I've been having this for over a decade. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically make sure that the bottoms meet up, okay? Close out that negative space right here, okay? So I'm gonna do that all the way around, making sure that each one is joined together, all right? All right, now if you want to make notes to say that, hey, you spread it out, like at the bottom, mine are 3.5 inches, but in between it is 2 inches. You can make notes on your pattern so you know what you did for the bishop sleeve. And then what you're going to do is go ahead and cut it out, and this is going to be your bishop sleeve. Also, one thing that I need you to do is definitely measure the bottom to see how far your cuff is, which mine is 24 3/4. So I'm going to put 24 3/4. I'm going to divide. I'm sorry. I'm just going to put 24.75. And then you want to divide that by 2. Okay. So I get 12.375 or 12 3/8. And I'm just going to make, basically, it's this piece right here. But I did mine before. I did this before I completely finished this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 16 inches. That's long. I'm going to actually hack it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 12 3/4. So this is 16 inches, if you can see this. So I need to take off 3 5/8. So all I'm going to do is take my ruler and take off 3 5/8 first, which is right here. I'm just going to make a line. Okay. And I'm going to go up to the other end and do the same thing. And then I know that I'm going to close this out. I'm hoping you're able to see this pretty good. Let me move the sleeve up. Okay. So I'm going to use the ruler and I'm going to close this out like this. Okay. Now I need to add seam allowance, and the seam allowance I'm going to add is I'm going to add 1 inch because it's a 1/2 inch this way and a 1/2 inch that way. So before I do that, what I want to do is I want to cut this off. So let me trim down. Now, instead of 16 inches, I have 12 3/8. So I'm going to change that to 12 3/8. Okay. By 2.5. Now what I'm going to do is fold it in half. This will be your cuff because this is going to be gathered at the bottom. So this becomes your cuff. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is open it. And then what I want to do is add a 1/2 inch. Okay. So you need a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. So from the bottom over, you're going to go a 1/2 inch. And then from this end, you're going to do a half of an inch. Okay. So now you know that on both ends, you have a 1/2 inch. Okay. On both sides. All right. So when you have the cuff folded in half, and I'm going to fold in like the seam allowance just to give you a situation. It's going to be folded like this, and it's going to go around your cuff like that. Okay. Now, depending on where you want your cuff, if I would say measure around your wrist, wherever you want your cuff to be first. Now, I just did 12 3/8, but first measure around your wrist where you want your cuff to be. And mine is, I don't want it like super duper big, 7.5. And if you want, you could do a 7.5 take a 7.5 and then draft you a cuff. But make sure you add a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that would be a +1, which is draft a measurement of 8.5. Okay. So that's how you would create your cuff for your sleeve. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my pieces out. And then I'm going to get started with and cut my fabric and then get started with sewing the top for New Look 6781. So let's go ahead and get to it now. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct New Look 6781. So this is a super simple sew for view A. And yes, I'm saying super simple because it's only 4 pattern pieces, okay? So let's look at the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct this top. So like I mentioned, it's only 4 pattern pieces. And the first pattern piece that you will need is, of course, pattern piece number 1, which is your front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Make sure you transfer all your notches and your marking, and also apply interfacing to that front portion where you see facing. So you're only going to apply facing from this line right here over to the side. And I think it's about 2 inches of interfacing, from 2 inches wide, and then probably about 22 to 24 inches long, but measure that at your own will. All right. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 2. And pattern piece number 2 is your side front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 3, which is the back. You need to cut 2 of fabric. And the last pattern piece that you're going to cut for the top is pattern piece number 4, the side back. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Now, in terms of your sleeves, you need to cut 2 of your sleeves. And the pattern for the sleeves, once again, is Simplicity 9467. Yes, I know I drafted a whole bishop sleeve with cuff, but before cutting the fabric out, my daughter, bought this pattern to me and was like, why not do the sleeve and the cuff of this one? And I was like, you know what? That's amazing. I like that. I love the sleeve. I love the top. So why not? So that's what we're doing today, just the sleeve and the cuff. So take out the pattern piece for the sleeve if you have this pattern. If not, go to Simplicity, Amazon, eBay, or Etsy in order to get this pattern, or get this pattern from Joann's. Okay, you can do that as well. But once again, it's Simplicity 9467. You're going to need the sleeve as well as the cuff. Now, for the sleeve, you need to cut 2 sleeves. And then for the cuff, you need to cut a total of 4 cuffs. All right. So you're going to cut 4. For the cuff, you're going to cut 4 fabric and interface 2. All right. Make sure you transfer your notch up here. Make sure you transfer your buttonholes, your buttons, and 3 dots, okay? So make sure you do that if you have this pattern on the sleeve, all right? Now, the only other pattern piece that you will need for the tops, New Look 6781, is your buttonhole guide. Now, make sure you do not cut this out of fabric or interfacing. It's just a guide for you to mark your buttonholes after you sew the shirt together or top together, all right? So those are all the pattern pieces that you will need. Let's go ahead and look at the instructions. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so go ahead and pull out the instructions for New Look 6781. And I'm going to say, we're just working on the top for right now. It's pattern piece 1 through 5. So it's going to show you right here. I am doing the pants as well. So I would say cut out all 8 pattern pieces for this one. Now, because of the top, I cut a size 16 for my top. So I followed along with the cutting guide right here. Basically, you're just cutting 4 pattern pieces. Nothing to it but to do it. All right. So you need to know the glossary. I have said this many of times. You need to know what finishing is. You need to know what narrow hem, slip stitch, stay stitch, top stitch, all the stitch, under stitch, all of that good stuff. You need to know what that is. Make sure that you have applied your interfacing, because those are the first 2 things you need to do when you start the top. So just to kind of walk you through the instructions, For this, we're going to be applying the interfacing, which I have done already. Make your darts. Now, I'm not going to show you how to make darts on the camera because we have done that so many times on this channel. But after we make the darts, we're going to attach our side front to our front, and we're going to stitch that down, finish off our seams on both sides. Then from there, you're going to do the same thing to the back. You're going to sew up the center back seam, then apply your side back to the back like you have done for the front. Same situation. Once you do that, now it tells you to sew up the side seams, but instead of me sewing my side seam, what I'm going to do is go ahead and start constructing the sleeves. Once I construct the sleeve, then I will go back and sew the side seams, okay? So that's what I'm going to do there. Now, on number 7, it talks about the self-facing. You're going to turn it to the inside and then sew a stay stitch all the way around here. And that's just preparing the neck in order to do the bias tape. Once again, I'm not sure if I want to do the bias tape or if I want to do a facing. And the reason why is because I feel like for this one with the facing, it may look a little awkward simply because of the way the shirt is per se. I don't want to do a collar. I don't want to do like a collar stand, none of that. So I'm still kind of like up in the air of possibly just doing some bias tape around that neck edge as well. We will not be doing anything in terms of the armholes from 12 to 15. That will be skipped because we're adding a sleeve, or I'm adding a sleeve. But if you want to do bias tape, you can follow those instructions from number 12 to 15. Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and finish off the lower front of our hem area. After you do that, you're going to narrow hem it right here in step number 17. Grab your buttonhole guide and mark your buttonholes. 18, make the buttonholes, add on the buttons, and then give your shirt a wash, a press, and then take some photos. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing today with New Look 6781. So now that we talked about the instructions, go ahead and grab pattern piece number 1 and 2 so we could go ahead and get rolling with the top. Let's go ahead and talk about it now. All right, so now before we start sewing up the top, I'm gonna put this up on the screen in terms of what are the notions that you will need in order to construct the top. Now, I have a complete video of the sewing toolkit that you will need anytime I do a sew along. It's the basic items that you will need. And the only thing I like to tell you is what you will need in terms of the notions, because all the other supplies you will need for any of my sew alongs, okay? So just have a whole sewing toolkit. Now, in terms of the notions, the only thing that you will need is a pack of a 1/2 inch wide single fold bias tape. I'm going to be making my own bias tape for this one because I just decided that I'm not going to do facing. I'm just going to add on bias tape and let it be what it's going to be. All right. So that's the only notions that you will need. This is an easy to sew pattern as well. So let's go ahead and get into sewing up this top. So grab pattern piece number 1 and 2 in order to sew up this top. Let's go ahead and talk about it now. All right, so go ahead and grab pattern piece number 1, which is your front. The first thing we're gonna do is the dart. So we have done darts so many times on this channel, but I do know that I have quite a bit of new subscribers, so I'm just gonna pretty much kind of show you how to pin out your dart. So turn it on the wrong side. I like to start where the dot is, look for that line that you should have marked, and then pin. Make sure that where your line is on the front, you pin there. Look in the back, make sure it comes out on the line in the back, and then just make sure that you maneuver your fabric to where it lines up on both sides, okay? So go ahead, pin out your darts. All right, so now that I have my darts pinned out, all you're gonna do is you're going to sew on this line. Just follow the line until you get to the dot. Do not back stitch at the dot. So you're gonna back stitch at the beginning. When you get to the dot, do not back stitch at the dot. Just pull some thread and then tie it 2 or 3 times, all right? So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and did the dart right here on my front pieces, the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and attach our side front, which is pattern piece number 2, to our front. So go ahead and grab pattern piece number 2, your side front. Let me show you what that looks like, okay? Pattern piece number 2. And with right sides together, now, when I'm saying right sides together, you have a double notch right here, and you have a single notch. It's the side with the single notch, okay? So you want to make sure right sides together. Make sure you mark your wrong side like you see I have done right here. And you want to match up the single notches. The double notches is for the back of your top, okay? And pin there, pin at the top. Another thing I'm going to mention is your darts. Make sure that you press your darts down towards the top instead of up towards the bodice, okay? So go ahead and pin along the side of your top now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my side front pin to my front using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and go ahead and sew your side seam. Once you do that, go ahead and finish your side seam off with your serger, pinking shears, or however way you want to finish off your side seams. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the side front attached to the front and press the seams towards the side front, I'm going to move this out my way. Grab pattern piece number 3. Now, I have already done this off camera, but it's self-explanatory. Right sides together, you're going to stitch up your center back seam. So you're going to pin at that double notch right here, pin at the bottom, the top, put some pins in between, and then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and then finish off your seam allowance. Now, what I did was I searched my seam allowance before I went ahead and sewed them together so I could have and press them open. So that's what I did. I searched my seam allowance before attaching right sides together. But if you decide to sew 5/8 of an inch seam allowance first, you can go back in, make sure your knife is not uncut, the blade is not uncut, you have the knife turned off, and then search your seam allowance, okay? So you can do that as well, and that's at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, all right? So the next step we're gonna do, we're gonna attach our side back to our back in the same method that we did for the front. So grab pattern piece number 4, and what we're gonna do is with right sides together, we're gonna pin the single notch to the side. So this one, this is a single notch, it goes to this side. Okay, and then the other one goes to the other side. Make sure you have the right sides that needs to go, okay? And then you're gonna pin, and then same thing like you did for the front, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and finish off your side seam. So you're doing the exact same thing that we just did for the front pattern piece, all right? So go ahead and pin and sew your side back to your back now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the side back onto the back, the next thing we're going to do is with right sides together, we're going to attach our front to back at the shoulders. So make sure that you have right sides together. Now, I know the instruction says shoulders and side seams. I'm just going to do my shoulders because I like to do my side seams a different way. If you know if you know, you know, okay? So I like to do my side seams using the flat method, and that's what I'll be doing for mine. So just go ahead and pin the shoulders across. Make sure you match up that single notch, just like this. And then you want to pin there, and then pin all the way across your shoulder seams. So go ahead and pin across your shoulder seams now. All right, so now that I have my shoulder seam pin using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, sew across both shoulder seams, finish off your seam allowance and press it to the back of your garment. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my shoulder seams done on both sides, the next thing, I'm gonna show you that. The next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and start working on our self-facing. So it's the front facing, all right? And what we're going to do is now I made a clip at the very top and at the very bottom, okay? So what I'm gonna do is turn it onto itself at that clip, and I'm going to pin at the top, okay? And what you want to do is you do have a little poke right here, but you want to basically make sure that you line it up with the top edge of your top all the way across, okay? So just go ahead and pin. And after you pin and it's lined up, I'm going to do 3/8 of an inch seam allowance because I'm just basting it across just to hold it in place, all right? So you can backstitch at the beginning, but I'm not. I'm just going to baste across right here at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, all right? So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have this basted, turned up the self-facing onto itself, and I have it basted around here, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and stay stitch around the neck edge. So I'm gonna start in the back, and I'm gonna stay stitch using 3/8, well, probably about 1/2 of an inch instead of 3/8, but I'm going to stay stitch from here, the center back, all the way to the front, and then back from the center back all the way to the other side, all right? Then after you do that, we're gonna go ahead and start applying our bias tape to the neck edge. Now, I normally do not like bias tape at my neck edge, but I'm gonna do it for the sake of this tutorial. Number one, instead of facing. And then number two, I'm going to be using my own bias tape, okay? Now, if you need to make bias tape, I advise you to make the bias tape at 1/2 an inch seam allowance. That's what I will be making my bias tape at. Now, if you are doing the pattern as is, no sleeves, I need you to go ahead and sew your side seams, okay? So you're gonna go ahead, right sides together, pin at your double notch, and sew your, well, pin all the way down, sew your side seam, and finish them off, okay? That's if you are doing the sleeveless view. If you are not doing the sleeveless view, make sure that stay stitch along the neck edge, and then we're gonna attach our bias tape, and then we'll be doing our sleeves and everything. And in the instructions where it tells you to sew your side sleeve seams and do the armhole with binding, if you're doing a sleeveless view, after you do your neck edge, you will be finishing off your armhole with seam binding as well. So those are the two things that you need to do if you are doing sleeveless. If you're doing the sleeve option, just continue on with me the way that I'm doing this, all right? So let's go ahead and stay stitch the neck edge so we can start adding our binding. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so I went ahead and stay stitched my neck edge. The next thing you're going to do now, I'm just gonna kind of pin it on there for you to show you what you're going to do, but you're going to take your bias tape. If you had to make some, hey, by all means, however you had to do it, right? Now, you're not going to go all the way to the front in order to pin on your bias tape. You're going to kind of start, I want to say probably about 2 inches. Let's grab the instructions to see. So it just says, open out one folded edge of bias tape and then press lightly. You're going to pin your bias tape to the neck edge, placing crease along seam line, lapping ends about 3/8 of an inch over the facing. So 3/8 of an inch from the front is probably where they want you to start putting your bias tape. Now, I'm not going to measure that, just to be 100% honest. I'm going to go about 1 inch instead of 3/8. I just feel like that would be like perfect for me, but do whatever you want to yours. I'm doing 1 inch from the front on both sides, and then I'm just going to pin all the way around that neck edge, okay? So go ahead and pin. Now, I'm going to pin the rest of it off camera, but go ahead and pin the rest of the bias tape to your neck edge now, So go ahead and pin that now. All right, so now that I have the bias tape pinned to the neck edge using 3/8" seam allowance and a regular length stitch, I'm going to, you don't have to do this, but I like to start in the back, go to one end and then flip it over and go to the other end. But what you can do is just back stitch at the beginning and sew all the way across the neck edge and back stitch at the end. Once you do that, trim your seam allowance down, press the seam allowance towards the bias tape, and then finish off your bias tape like we have done before. All right, so go ahead and attach your bias tape and finish it off now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the bias tape done, I'm going to go back and take off the basting stitch that you see there. I'm going to turn it to the right side and then show you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my seam ripper, I'm going to rip out all the basting stitch. That was just to hold it in place while I basted on the wrong side, but then I went ahead and did my permanent stitch on the right side. That's just how I like to do my bias tape or anything that I'm finishing off. Like even if I'm doing a waistband, I will do it that way. Then I know that the waistband is secure. See? I don't have that flapping up and stuff, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and fix that or whatnot. So the next thing I'm going to do, now what you need to do is go ahead and turn this to the inside. You should get a clean finish on your facing. All right, and if you need to clip some loose threads, you can. So you should have a clean finish there, okay? Now, at the bottom, you're going to turn the facing onto itself, okay? And I believe in the instruction, the hem allowance is 5/8" seam allowance. So let me grab my pins. Okay, so now that I grab my pins, I'm going to turn the facing onto itself right here. I have a little clip at the bottom like I normally do, and I'm going to turn it onto itself. I checked the hem allowance and it's 5/8" hem allowance. So what you want to do is go ahead and pin, and then you're going to sew using 5/8" seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, and just sew across till you get to the end right here. After you do that, what you want to do now, because my top is not completely sewn on the side, I will not be serging the bottom edge until that's done. But if you are doing the sleeveless option, go ahead and finish off the bottom and then press up 5/8" hem allowance for your hem, okay? Once you do that, you're done except for the buttonholes. So just hang tight. Go ahead and make your buttonholes on the left side and attach your buttons. Then if you are doing the sleeveless option, you will be done with your top. But you can hang on tight to see how this top unfolds if you are wanting to just kind of know how this top will look. All right, so I'm going to turn the other side out, and it gives a good, nice finished top at the top portion of it, okay? And what I'm going to do is fold the other side facing onto itself, grab my pins, and I'm going to pin at the bottom. And then once again, using 5/8" seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and just sew across that, trim it down, and then turn it right side out. That's exactly what we're gonna do. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the facing sewn at 5/8" seam allowance, what I'm gonna do is clip just a little bit and trim it down to about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Trim about 1/4 inch off, okay? That's exactly what it's supposed to look like. Just make sure you leave a little bit of a tail. You're gonna do the same thing to the other side as well. Once you do that, you want to turn it to the inside like this. Use your point turner and poke out that little corner. Be careful not to poke a hole though, okay? And then your front is pretty much done until it's time to put on the buttons, okay? So just hang tight if you have done the sleeveless option. All right, so now I'm gonna move this out of the way and I'm gonna start constructing my sleeve. However, there is a complete sew along on how to put the sleeve together. I'm going to link it below so you could go there to the sleeves, if you are doing the sleeve option, is Simplicity 9467 for that sleeve option. All right, so go there, see that sleeve, and then come back, and what we will do is finish off the hem allowance. All right, so go ahead, watch the sleeve video, and then come back and finish off your sleeves. All right, so go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have went ahead and did the sleeves, the sleeve is looking good. I went ahead and put on the cuff. I put on my fray check. I just need to, I'm gonna let it dry overnight and hang overnight as well. And then I'll put my buttons on tomorrow, okay? But it is completely done. Give your top a complete wash, a complete press. Style it however you want, but this is the finished garment. So after you do the sleeves and the cuff, you need to do the buttonholes and put on your buttons. But so right here, if you could see, I made 5 buttonholes. Let me scoot it up so you can see. So I made a total of 5 buttonholes here. So I'm gonna put these buttons on. Okay, so it's gonna be 5. I'm just gonna kind of like put them in so you could kind of see it like this. Okay, so it's gonna look like that, but these buttons are gonna go on this side, and then on the cuffs I have smaller green buttons. They didn't have buttons that pretty much match this color, which is fine for me. It's no big deal. But these smaller buttons are going to go right here. Like this, okay? Let me put a couple of more so you could see. I don't have, like, I seen a pair of brown buttons, but I do not have the brown buttons that's bigger in the 7/8 to 1 inch. So I'm just gonna go with, I'll probably just go with these green buttons, all right? All right, well, that is it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. And if you make this pattern, New Look 6781, whether you make it plain Jane or add some or some jazzy sleeves, bishop sleeves, slit sleeves, balloon sleeves, short sleeves, long sleeves, petal sleeves, whatever you want to do to your top, just make sure you enjoy the process while making it, all right? Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you make this top, please do not forget to tag me on Instagram at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs or here on YouTube as well. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing. All right, so there you have it. That is the complete pattern review and the sew along. I hope you enjoyed. And if this video was educational, inspiring, and fun, please do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe button. Also, smash that notification bell so you are notified every time your girl uploads a new video. Also, if you make this top or these pants, do not forget to tag me in your creation here on YouTube or on Instagram so I can share in my stories. One last thing, once again, do not forget to follow the other 22 inspiring sewists in the sewing community for Hot Girl Summer. You don't want to miss what new look pattern or patterns, because they may show you 2, they may show you 3. I don't know what they created because they have not shared with me, all right? But make sure you following all the ladies. All of the YouTube channels are in the description box below, so you can link to that. I'm linking to the fabric as well as other resources that I shared with you guys in this video. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing.